Then we move on to human resources planning, another pivotal factor. Let's look at how you can do this. If you are several people, you can make an organigram so that everyone is able to gain an overview of who is already there and how the whole thing is structured. An organigram can be very easily produced with PowerPoint. We also have training for those wishing to learn how to do this. This is one of the really useful capabilities that PowerPoint offers you. Just a few clicks and your organigram is on the screen. Then you should address the planning of staff, and it's very important that this covers the next 3 to 5 years. Why? Here is where you have to make a range of decisions. Do I want to recruit staff? Do I want to have, for example, multiple locations with a larger number of staff? Do you want to build up a proper body of staff? If I'm going to be a sole trader that runs the business single-handedly online, am I aiming to grow the business to such an extent that I need to appoint staff in the future? Do I want that? Do I want to take on the responsibility? Do I want to build a company that has 100 employees? Is that really my aim? Very clear questions to be answered in the context of the next 3 to 5 years. If, for example, you say that in 5 years you still want to be working alone, you must develop your business accordingly. This brings us neatly to the next point. If you say in 5 years I want to have tripled my number of staff, then you must also take appropriate action to make sure that this is the case. This is why human resources planning is such an important aspect of your business plan. Naturally, you'll also want to think about the professional development of your staff. How will you train your staff to ensure that your business goals are reached? What should this professional development actually involve? What do you imagine it to consist of? In my opinion, professional development is a crucially important success factor. I can't say it is success factor number 1. That would be you, yourself, who you are, your attitude. But essentially, professional development is what gets you where you want to be. When you undertake personal professional development, you get to brush away the mental cobwebs and eliminate unhelpful beliefs and associated worries. Many people fail to achieve any success because they're scared of being successful. This is too expansive a topic to delve into here. Just try to get started on your personal professional development and then extend it to the rest of the firm. I used to be a very poor salesperson. I had a rate of 100%, meaning that 100% of the people who talked to me on the phone bought nothing afterwards. This was because I spouted a lot of jargon and gibberish, which I'm sure you can imagine. After that, I thought constantly about how important it is to be able to sell well. There is a saying, one has to be born a salesperson. This is a steadfastly held belief in business. Another is the image of salespeople as nothing but door-to-door sales representative, the lowlifes of the business world. If you want to find yourself alone at a party, all you need to do is tell people that you're a salesman. This is a negative perception you'll have to deal with. After my bad experience in sales, I sought out a couple of sales seminars, and that was the key. This is something I can wholeheartedly recommend. Holding structured discussions about sales in order to really get to the bottom of what it's about. You can learn some amazingly useful things by doing this. And to be very clear, if you are building a business which involves maintaining customer contact, where you are clearly focused on selling something, where you lead negotiations, send your staff to professional development courses and sales training seminars. You'll be amazed at what you can gain. Naturally, this is something we also offer. I never fail to mention when we offer extra training in a particular subject, because people always think, yes, of course, this is something I would like to do. You might say, for example, that you're enjoying this course, this training. You like how it's being conducted. You might ask yourself, why I sit down the whole time? Why don't I stand up? It's very simple. I'm usually all over the place. I move around a lot, and over a long period that can be tiring, for you as well as for me. At some point, I realized that when I sit, I'm considerably calmer. And if that's something you appreciate, you might be tempted to say, okay, I require more professional development. I'm interested in more topics. The more you do, the more success you will have. And since I'm 100% convinced that you'll have incredible success with our methods and advice, I remind you from time to time that you can obtain relevant training for us for one theme or another. I don't want for you to say afterwards, I wish I'd known that. That's something I want to avoid. In the area of professional development, we are very, very strong. That's our mainstay, providing professional development for your staff as well as for you, the business leader. We cater for both personal professional development and, where needed, for development in your specific area of activity. If nothing else helps, then outsourcing is usually an effective alternative solution. Nowadays, everything, and I mean everything, is outsourced. Regardless of what you do, there will be a firm somewhere that can do it for you. You have many options in this area, most of which are made possible by the internet. The really amazing thing about today's business world is that there are countless options for communication. Whether people are located here or there is no longer of any significance. Everything has become global, and everyone can take advantage of this. Investigate what your firm could achieve using outsourcing. You will discover some incredible benefits. Now we come to the know-how of the staff. This should also be included in the business plan. It's not only your capabilities which are important, it's the capabilities of your employees too. What can your employees do for your business? What have they been trained in? What are their abilities? What are their goals? It's crucial that you mention your employees' know-how in your business plan. Then you need to focus on prospects and risks. It's very important to establish where your risks lie. That means that when you name your strengths, you must also name your weaknesses. When you list your prospects, you must also specify the risks. Be very clear about the importance of this. When you only mention how great everything is, how amazingly well it's going, this can be your downfall. Of course, there are risks overall. If there weren't, then everybody would succeed, and this is not the case. When you consider the whole picture, there will be weaknesses you need to address and define. If you fail to do so, people will become skeptical. Why doesn't he or she say anything on the subject of risks? On what basis does he or she believe everything to be just great? The weaknesses, do I have to sit down and investigate them myself? As a banker, am I the one who has to determine where the weak points of the business will be? Work out your risks and weaknesses in advance and state how you plan to eliminate them. At this stage, it's also meaningful to determine your best case and worst case scenarios. What do I mean by this? Write down what you could achieve in the optimal scenario, the very, very best. If everything goes exactly according to plan, How will your business look? How will it develop? When doing this, however, it's also important to consider how it will look if things don't go as planned. This is an essential step for your business and yourself. How will it look if things don't go so smoothly? Do you have a chance of survival? How will you decide when the time has come to abandon any attempt at continuing? How will this be determined? And if the end of your business is your worst case scenario, you should not even attempt to begin. Worst case means that you have difficulties that must be overcome. If you foresee difficulties that cannot be overcome, you shouldn't begin at all. You must also consider how you will deal with lulls or weaker periods of business. This is extremely important. Prospects, risks, best case scenario, worst case scenario. Now we move on to the financial planning. This is where you think about how much do I actually need? Business plans frequently concern themselves only with the topic of money. But we've already said you should also write a business plan in situations where money is not the only thing under consideration. Update your financial plan monthly during the first year. How is it looking? How much capital do you need? How much capital can you go without? I've provided an Excel file listing a few simple items of data with which you can begin to orient yourself. It goes without saying, however, that this Excel sheet must be adapted to suit your business. You must be able to recognize, I can take action in this area, and this area, and this area. For this reason, during the first year, you should update your figures on a monthly basis. After this, you can start to update your plan less often, on a quarterly basis, let's say, and then every half year. The financial plan, like the business plan, should look ahead over the coming few years, not only the first 3 months. Naturally, you will then make profit and loss calculations. Specify exactly how you expect these to look. What profits do you anticipate? What losses? Draw up a plan. A liquidation plan is also very important. If you have one, it will prevent you from quickly going bust. If you are liquid, what more do you want? If there is money there, if you are generating money, the business continues to run. If there is no more money, the business ends. It's that simple, and it's for this reason that liquidity planning is of utmost importance. In the case of liquidity, there are different approaches. Generally, I would advise that you take the total money required for your everyday outgoings over 1 year and hold it in readiness. You then have that as a basis, and you won't end up in a fix and needing to act in extreme haste or do things you have no desire to do. You don't want to end up having to accept orders and jobs that you don't want to take. If you don't keep some emergency money, things can get really out of hand. If you have staff, this is even more important. Keep enough in reserve to pay the salaries of your employees for a few months. Don't survive hand to mouth. If all you can afford to do when customers have paid their orders is to pay your employees' salaries, you're finished. Many customers don't even pay. Account for a default rate in your calculations. Because of all this, it's crucial that you plan your liquidity, and as precisely as possible, not with a rule of thumb estimate. Your capital demand must also be considered. Some people will advise you calculate your capital demand and then multiply it by 2. These people, who have already built a business themselves, know that it can sometimes happen like this, that everything gets out of hand. However, some people will advise you the opposite, to calculate your capital demand and then divide it in half. When founding a new business, you must always ask yourself, do I really need to buy a desk for €1,000? Does it really need to be the best computer for €2,000? Does it really have to be a BMW 3 for €50,000? Think it over. Is it really necessary? Do you really need to work in a super trendy office, or will a normal one suffice? That will depend on your own personal attitude. But in any case, take some time to consider what the capital demand of your business really is. This is crucial. Then, moving on, capital providers. This is a very important aspect to consider. It's great when you have money yourself and you can say that person X and person Y are contributing also. Super. So make sure, if this is the case, that it's mentioned in your business plan. If you have several capital providers, specify who they are. It's advantageous to do this if you are hoping to acquire even more money, because providers will be considerably more generous when they see that they're not alone. Then we come to earmarked expenditure. This is something that needs to be considered very precisely. If you receive money, you need to state very clearly what it will be used for. If you get €100,000 from the bank, you can't jump straight on the aeroplane for a brainstorming session in Tenerife. Sadly, it doesn't work like this. You need to be able to say very clearly what the money will be spent on. For the most part, the banks will not involve themselves in the specifics. A lot of times they will tell you, okay, we'll make this line of credit available, and when you need money, tell us what for and we'll release it. It usually happens like this. Most of the time, a holiday never enters the picture. That comes only after the business is up and running. This is what you need to know about earmarked expenditure. And that's my whole intention, for you to take action, for you to implement new things and become more successful. This is important for me too. Why? Very simply, I also have a personal interest in getting you to say, I enjoyed the training, I like how he delivered it, I'll look in the shop to see what other products and training materials are available there. The more successful you are, the more importance you will place on professional development. Unfortunately, however, there's a paradox. At the beginning of the business, the focus should be very strongly on professional development. It should not be your strategy to begin and then to seek further training only after your first success. You should do it directly at the start. This advice often falls on deaf ears. But the important thing is that you accustom yourself to incorporating professional development right from the beginning. That you set aside money and time for it, and that you develop your skills and knowledge so as to move your business forwards. Keep this in mind as an incidental point. Now we're nearing the end of the business plan. This is the place for any appendices you might want to include. Here I have differentiated between appendices for startups and appendices for existing businesses. Founders of startups might want to include a detailed CV. Who are you? What do you do? You might also want to include the CVs of employees that you're already intending to appoint. Don't forget the certificates and diplomas should be included in this detailed CV, just as they would be for a job application. Essentially, when you submit an application, you want others to recognize what kind of person you are, what educational background and training you have, what your skills are, what you're doing, if you are at all suited for the post for which you're applying. Some people have the desire to be independent in business, but are not very well suited to it. And when someone else is required to judge your suitability, it's very important that certificates and diplomas are included. After that, and if you already have them, you might want to include prototypes of brochures and products. And I would also include results of surveys and questionnaires, which you can easily obtain through the internet. Draw up a couple of surveys online. Do questionnaires on the street, whatever. Surveys have the great advantage of allowing you to evaluate things much more effectively. Let's look at the following method as an example. People place ads on Google for products that do not even exist, just to see how people will react. A regular company couldn't imagine doing such a thing, because it entails throwing money at something for no profit. But it's really an investment like any other, one that you make in order to elicit information about what people want and what gets them going. This is something you can do very easily with a survey, simply by asking people what they want. You should then include the survey results as an appendix. This will allow you to demonstrate that here the people I asked want this and this and this, and this is exactly what I'm offering. What should existing companies include in their appendices? Annual accounts belong there to give the reader an idea of how the company currently looks. Press reports, if you have them, should also be included, since press reports usually indicate that the firm has reached a certain size. Letters of reference or recommendation should also be included if you have them. Evidence for the winning of prizes also belongs here too. If you have won any type of contest or award, make sure the proof is enclosed. The next thing to include is customer feedback. Anything you have that fits this category. The product overview is an obvious inclusion to allow the reader to gain a general idea of what you do. And lastly, as for a startup, you should include as many survey results as possible. And now the most important slide of all, and that is, now it's up to you. Study the templates, watch the training video a second time at your own convenience, and listen to the whole of the audio for a second time too. The audio file is included so that you can listen to the entire thing in the car or while playing sport or wherever else. And then it's up to you to implement it. Create your business plan. Retrieve your old business plan from the filing cabinet, whatever. Make a start and see it through. And I promise you, you will find things an unbelievable amount easier and have a lot more success than if you hadn't made a business plan. I wish you, all of you, all the success in the world, and hope that you'll take another look at our shop, where you'll find more valuable training materials to get stuck into. All the best, Henning Glaser.